I see things that the majority of people don't see at all.
If you want to track someone down,
There's a track right there.
retired park ranger Dwight McCarter is the man you want hot on their trail.
And it looks like he's right-legged, and a pretty good stride sends a flag to you there.
This nationally renowned man tracker has found fugitives,
Here it is, right here.
missing aircraft, and small children in the Smokies. Enough tales to fill a book, which he did.
And that little boy got lost just off to the right of that there.
But in a career that's a chronicle of success, the chapter that still stands out is a story with a beginning, a middle, but no end, even after 45 years.
Dennis Martin, on June the 14th, 1969, disappeared off the face of the earth, never to be found.
On Father's Day weekend, 1969, 6-year-old Dennis Martin camped out with his dad, his grandfather, his older brother, and some other kids up at Spence Field. And at around 4:30 in the afternoon, the boys huddled up, planned a playful prank on their parents, and then split up.
They were going to sneak up and scare their family. The older boys jumped out of the woods and booed the family and had a lot of fun. And when it come time for Dennis to show up and scare the family, he never showed up.
It had only been 3 minutes since they saw Dennis, but his father started looking for him.
They hollered for him. The problem at Spence Field that there seems to be an incessant wind comes out of Tennessee and whips over the mountain, and it's that wind drowns it out.
And as darkness started to fall, so did the rain, in buckets. 2.5 inches in one night.
And the storm was so vicious, and you can imagine what the little boy was going through. Where was he? Where could he be?
The next day, crews started searching the trails and the swollen creeks. Special forces were in the area doing exercises, so Green Berets with experience fighting in the jungles of Vietnam were suddenly on hand to help search the rugged forest.
The search area has expanded as the days stretch into a full week since the youngster was reported missing.
But the rain kept coming. Another 3 inches, more flash floods, all washing away any clues and making roads way too muddy to travel. Crowds and crowds of people showed up to help, eventually growing to 1,400 people at one time, scouring the Smokies for any sign of Dennis. But any clues not washed away by the rain were now drowning in the flood of good-hearted people.
If you got 1,400 people, they've stomped on everything. It just don't work.
At that point, the search dogs cannot sniff out any clues trampled by 1,000 people, so the search dragged on. Was Dennis attacked by an animal, washed downstream, kidnapped? Infinite theories and leads, none of them leading to Dennis. And with the Great Smoky Mountains being the most visited national park in the entire country, you would think if Dennis Martin died here, someone would come across something, be it remains or a piece of clothing over the course of 45 years. But actually, with each passing season, Mother Nature buries the secrets of the national park deeper and deeper.
For every year, the forest layers up 1/2 to 1 inch of debris. So this is 45 years, 45 inches underneath the earth.
All the notes on the Dennis Martin search.
Crews learned a lot of lessons the hard way during the Dennis Martin search, and the Smoky Search and Rescue Coordinator, Steve Closter, says those lessons have been taught ever since.
In that search operations class, on day one, what they do is they review the Dennis Martin search. Very good intentions, but you had hundreds and hundreds of people showing up, and they had no training.
It changed forever the way we search.
The entire nation put a big emphasis on training, researching life-saving procedures for exactly when and how to search for missing people.
From the failure of one, you learn how to get better, and I think we get better in life, you know.
So whatever happened to Dennis Martin? It's a question with no answer, a story with no ending. But the narrative is clear in the mind of Dwight McCarter.
For the searchers and the rangers and the family, it's not your fault It's not your fault. Not finding him. You did the best you could with the resources that you had. It's not your fault.
In the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, Jim Matheny, WBIR 10 News. Those who scale steep slopes more than 6,500 feet to the summit of Mount LeConte know every strenuous step hammers home the 3 rules of the mountaineer. It is always further, always taller, and always harder than it looks.
It's been kind of eye-opening.
Especially during the depths of a record-setting winter. Even for an experienced man who meets the mountains for a living.
I haven't ever heard of a polar vortex before this past winter, so.
This is John Paul Kroll's 3rd year carrying the torch of the winter caretaker at the LeConte Lodge. These cabins close from November to March, and when the rest of the crew climbs down, Kroll stays as the summit's sole resident, all alone during a few months of deep freeze.
Usually just me, myself, and I. Water we have to haul up, so I have to go down to the spring, which is about 2/10 of a mile from here, and carry it up in jugs. Electricity, we have a solar panel for chargers and park service radio and stuff like that. Satellite radio. This is my big indulgence for the season.
When I get over this mountain, you know where I wanna go.
Lights, generally we rely on the kerosene.
When the winter sun gives way to glowing city lights below, the icy darkness usually sends Kroll to slumber snug in his cabin.
Propane heat. Yeah, and my cabin's pretty toasty. It's a small space, so that's usually where I run to.
Kroll rises with the sun and repeats a daily routine that revolves around recording and reporting the wildly unpredictable weather at the summit.
We check the rain gauge, and we haven't had any precipitation all day yesterday, so this is how we check the weather. It's just a little high-low gauge and current temperature and call it into the National Weather Service. Yeah, that's pretty much my main responsibility up here.
Then Kroll counts on a single bar of cell service to connect to the lodge website and update the daily blog.
Weather conditions out to people, so if they're gonna hit the trail today, they're able to have like a better idea, hear what it's like up top, get some photos up.
And this winter's photos through crystal clear air are unforgettably frigid.
This year was just super cold. Probably in 3 seasons I had like my 5 coldest nights up here. We're down to -18, -17. When before that, I think the lowest I saw was -5 one night. Those mornings with the polar vortex, we don't have insulation in the kitchen, and I'd wake up and it was 10 degrees in there with the heater on full blast. You could tell, like, without even looking at the thermometer, that you're wearing everything you got and you have good gear, and it's still cutting through you.
And John Paul says the hardest thing about being up at the top of Mount LeConte during the winter isn't necessarily the cold temperatures or the snow. It's whenever there's a freeze and a thaw, and all of this snow turns into one big sheet of ice. And making even the shortest hike safely requires some specialized equipment.
So make sure you got your spikes on. It's been so long where you just have to worry about falling and, have a little bit of anxiety while you're walking.
After 3 months frozen solid, Kroll finally savors a sun-soaked splash of spring that melted most of the snow.
Man, has this been like the warmest week since you've been up here?
Yeah, I forgot how much I missed it.
And after a season full of negative temperatures, a day with a high in the upper 40s seems positively perfect for shorts.
Try to enjoy the clear trails. When you can just go into cruise control and jet up and down the mountain, it's as good as it gets.
And no matter how low the mercury dips, Kroll says the job of caretaker comes with a lot more personal highs.
Sunrise and sunset. Yeah, I just, want to share this with everyone. I think people become their best selves when they're out here and it's your backyard. It's easy to take for granted the fact that you live in a place that's remarkable. Just seeing what's around the next corner.
And savor heavenly sights that saturate the skies and send spirits soaring high on Mount LeConte.
Sometimes it's just, mind-blowing up here.
In the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, Jim Matheny, WBIR 10 News.
It's something I always remember.
When Paul Hethman tears open a bag of M&Ms, he usually sees red, in a good way.
Actually got some quite bright colors.
But today, generations of people have no idea Hethman had a hand in bringing back the banished red M&M.
You didn't have reds. It really was all dull colors.
In the 1970s, there was a red scare. Scientists in the Soviet Union linked a certain type of red dye to cancer. M&Ms did not even use that type of dye. But to avoid any confusion with candy lovers, got rid of red in 1976.
It was guilty by association, so they got rid of the association.
In 1982, M&Ms were dull. And Paul Hethman was a bored freshman at the University of Tennessee.
And just to have a little bit of fun, to get back in touch with my friends.
Hethman made a mockery of junk mail by sending his friends a letter offering them exclusive membership in his Society for the Restoration and Preservation of Red M&Ms.
Of course, I had to charge him 99 cents to join, because you have to charge him something. It really was a satire.
But this satirical society, born from boredom, soon showed up in an article in black and white and was truly red all over.
Today, it's the going viral on the social networks, right? I went viral on the newspapers. Fall of 1983. And that's when things just really exploded.
Hethman's Society made headlines in the Wall Street Journal and resonated with people rabid to revive the red M&M.
Literally, I got thousands of letters. All of a sudden, it's like, well, people actually really want this. It's not as much of a joke anymore.
If I get this done, I'll be satisfied for life.
But Hethman and his college buddies kept a sense of humor and held regular meetings where they paid homage to the only known surviving red M&M, and even got to show it to Charles Kuralt.
The M is faded off, but more precious than a diamond to us.
400 or 500 people who actually sent me dues to join the society.
Then on January 9th, 1987, Hethman's Red Letter Day arrived with a message from Hackettstown, New Jersey.
And we've got, Dear Paul, good things do happen for those who wait. They've reintroduced red M&Ms.
You see, there. Red M&Ms are back. The kids from Tennessee have won.
Morris sent Hethman a free overnight shipment of 50 pounds of red M&Ms.
Come on, we're gonna be late for the party.
Today, Red is not only back, he's M&M's main pitchman.
Thanks for introducing us.
And Hethman, who is now a software developer, says most of his co-workers and friends have no clue about his colorful past.
I was with one of my friends and I brought back red M&Ms. He's like, what the hell are you talking about? I said, well, Google me. And when Christmas time comes around and the family doesn't really quite know what to buy you, anything that has a red M&M on it is fair game.
And Hethman still enjoys seeing red and knowing he personally made every day in Candyland a whole lot brighter.
But it was fun, Heck, I was a 19-year-old. I was getting more than my 15 minutes of fame. It's a fun thing to have done.
In Farragut, Jim Matheny, WBIR 10 News.